under 10.5 on the line.
You have to be the biggest, dumbest idiot.
Josh Allen inside the 10, inside 5, touchdown, game over.
Going into the draft, I was a big Penix guy. I'm still a big Penix guy.
Rashee Rice is way ahead of schedule in his ACL rehab, which is good news for his fantasy managers because the Dallas court system is way behind schedule. That's also good news for local comedian Miles Francis. Oh, hello and welcome. So what are we talking about with Jamie Jakes? I am him. I'm sitting here with Film Demon, Ryan Perrio, and we're here to discuss Super Flex Dynasty Startup Draft busts. If you missed our first episode, it's really, really important. You're going to want to go back and watch it because we covered pick number 1 to number 51 in your startup ADP. We are going to start here at the ADP average draft position of 54 with Ryan Perrio, resident Film Demons bust nomination of running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, Chase Brown. Your dynasty bust. Defend yourself, Ryan Perrio. I don't know if I agree with this take.
I just look at the Cleveland Browns and not Cleveland Browns, but I look at the Cincinnati Bengals and I watch their defense just absolutely have no clue. And I just don't see them being able to run the ball. Yeah, he'll make catch some passes, but again, Cincinnati's done everything wrong with the team building, trying to placate their quarterback, and it may blow up in their faces. You know, signing T. Higgins, Jamar Chase will do great for the passing game, but the rest of the team is kind of really struggling to kind of, you know, basically deal with that financial case of a $40 million quarterback, a $42 million wide receiver, and now a $38 million receiver. It's a lot of money to commit to 3 guys. And it's just, I don't think Chase Brown's going to get the opportunities that he would have gotten had they let go of T. Higgins and actually built a more just traditional offense.
So I think this is pretty fair, actually, out of you, Ryan Perrio, because my first kickback of like half PPR, full PPR is, well, this guy is just going to be a PPR scam. And another big thing that you didn't mention is that this guy was the backup running back for the team until Zach Moss went down. And that's when he became kind of like a fantasy star. Mm-hmm. And, you know, obviously Zach Moss is not a concern for him this year. He did have a lot higher volume of rushing attempts than I thought he did. I thought he was a little bit more of a PPR scam last year. And he did have a couple of games where he kind of balled out from the reception.
He's got 4.3 speed. So allegedly, we know how you feel about 40 yards, but
so go ahead, Ryan.
He's got speed. He's got a little bit of size. He's not the biggest back, but he's kind of that tweener with speed that they can be physical, but isn't the biggest back in the world.
Yeah. So he had so when he took over as the majority running back for the team, would have been week 6, 3 targets, 2 targets, 4 targets, 5 targets. And then he had an 11 target game against Baltimore. So I don't remember that game specifically, but I have to assume that they were getting blown out in that game.
That was the Baltimore the overtime game where Lamar Jackson threw where it was that's where Jamar Chase had like the 300-yard game almost.
So he played 6 quarters. He played 6 quarters in that game. So that makes sense. Okay. Chargers, he had 7, so that's pretty good too. Pittsburgh 3, then 8, 3, 3, 4. Didn't play week 18 to end the season. So not a PPR scam as much as I thought he would be in my head. So I think that's a pretty fair argument that they're going to be airing out the ball a lot. So maybe it's just a bet on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase over there.
Yeah, I think they should what Bengals should have done is traded T. Higgins, got what they could for him, and then basically, you know, develop. I think the Burton issue and Isabash was amazing last year. I thought he did a heck of a job as the, you know, kind of the big possession guy that could be opposite Jamar Chase. That allowed Jamar Chase to run free. I thought Ishavash did great, and I don't understand why they felt the need to pay T. Higgins that kind of money.
Yeah, and then not pay your defense any money.
And then bring Al Golden, who basically doesn't really. I believe his Al Golden was a Notre Dame coordinator, so his goal is to rush the passer so that you don't have to worry about coverage because the quarterback's just such under pressure that he doesn't have time to read through. It's like, well, you better get some more pressure because if that doesn't work, your DBs are just kind of out there
on an island getting cooked.
They weren't even on the same island as their receiver. They were on
different continent.
Yes,
different ocean. Okay, moving on. I think you kind of swayed me on that, especially when we're talking dynasty. Especially when we're talking about a guy who was a backup last year until the starting running back broke his neck. Yeah, I mean, there's reasons for concern
3 weeks
there.
After that,
yeah,
he played 3 weeks with a broken neck. That's insane.
He's dog. I wish him well. Sounds like his career might be potentially over, Zach Moss. But
yeah,
thoughts and prayers go out to him. Moving on to our next player. This is one of my guys that I think is going to be a total Superflex Dynasty startup bust. Rome Odunze. Don't draft this guy in your startup leagues, guys. ADP of 56, which is way too high, purely based on how bad he was last season. Everyone makes a big excuse now. Keenan Allen is gone. He and everyone's like, oh, this guy wasn't able to perform because of Keenan Allen. And that's totally false. Actually, Rome Odunze ran the 8th most routes in the NFL last season. Not on the team, in the whole NFL. He had 101 targets. He was targeted a ton as a rookie. Only got 734 yards out of that. DJ Moore, by the way, ran 140 routes, 996 yards. So you say, well, he was in a bad environment. Well, DJ Moore ran a similar amount of routes, got way more targets and did more with it when he was targeted. The statistics are unforgivable, undeniably bad for Rome Odunze. 17 games. He played all 17 games, so tip of the cap to staying healthy for him. 8th most routes run in the NFL, like I said. So he had the 8th most opportunities in the NFL to catch passes. He was 41st in reception yards. He was 66th in target percentage. He was 68th in the NFL in yards per route run. He was 78th in catch percentage. He was 68th in EPA per target. Same quarterback this year, new offensive coordinator, new head coach, new coaching staff. Everyone thinks Ben Johnson's going to bring his pixie dust and sprinkle it around. But guess what happened when he came in? He drafted Colston Loveland and he drafted Luther Burden with his first 2 picks as an offensive-minded new head coach. They played against the Bears 2 times this season. I think Ben Johnson knows how bad Rome Odunze is. I'm sure him and Aaron Glenn had donuts with each other and just talked about how their side of the football was preparing for that game that week. And I think they had a lot of talks about how we need to worry about a few things about this Chicago Bears offense. And I think they said, who really stinks, who they overdrafted? Good thing they overdrafted him is Rome freaking Odunze. That guy stinks. I think that's the conversation they were having. Going back to college, not a big Rome guy. I think you look back on it with the new what?
What a shock.
Point of view.
What a shock on this.
He didn't separate in college. He was a contested catch guy. He was a pure contested catch guy. And you look back at a lot of that film, that's Michael Penix putting the ball on the money. So
to me, like to right here, like this kind of money on Rome Odunze, like every pass is like right there.
Like when Smalls closed his eyes in the Sandlot, and he said, "Please catch it, please catch it." Rome Odunze could have literally just closed his eyes, run his route, and just extended his hands like this, and that's where Penix was putting the football. It was really impressive in college. I can't wait to see what Penix does in the real life NFL. The one big criticism I get on this, the big pushback is, and I hear this from other analysts too, is like DJ Moore is the odd man out in this situation. I don't think that's the case. I mean, he didn't play preseason. He's a starting wide receiver on the team. And if you have a rookie quarterback who's struggling with a weak offensive line, what are you going to do? You're going to dump the ball off, screen plays, design plays to your best wide receiver. And that's what they did with DJ Moore last year. And I think that's what they're going to do again this year. Okay. You are giving up an opportunity to draft Devontae Smith, Xavier Worthy, George Kittle, Kenneth Walker instead of taking Rome Odunze. So for
Kenneth
that
Walker,
reason,
please.
he is a total bust. Give me any of those guys. I mean, I get it. George Kittle is like 29 years old, but he's, tight end. Those guys last forever. Xavier Worthy has good upside. I'm not quite as excited about him. And Devontae Smith, undersized wide receiver. I'd rather take Kittle or Kenneth Walker. Give me Kenneth Walker. Even though he's still nursing a foot in training camp right now. Maybe he'll get healthy one day. Ryan Perrio.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Rome?
I could see Rome developing into their version of the deep threat. Like I see him not being the number one. Like I said, he could sneak into that role just because I think he may get overlooked by defenses now with all these other offensive players out here that you have to defensively cover. So he may get lost in the wash and have some good games. But I don't know if what he does is number one receiver worthy. Like he could be a decent 4 or 5. The thing that I think people don't talk about, like, yes, I admire his competitiveness to when he made a mistake at the combine to keep running the route until he got it right. But it took 2 hours after the combine was over for that to occur. And that's kind of a red flag to me. It's like, I admire the passion that you want it, that you're going to be that guy, but sometimes you just don't have the physical gifts needed for the position. And that may just be his fate, is that he's kind of that Tim Patrick on this team of just kind of the 4th or 5th guy who finds himself open because everybody else is basically getting all the attention.
Yep. I agree with you, Ryan Perrio. Moving on to a couple of your nominations back to back here. We've got Tyler Warren, ADP of 58. Defend yourself, Ryan Perry. You think Tyler Warren's a bust. Don't draft him in your startup leagues.
I don't know if Tyler Warren's the bust or just everything going on in Indianapolis is the bust.
That's a good point.
To me, a tight end, outside of last year, like if you're a tight end that gets drafted on a bad team, you're not getting a lot done. Like Brock Bowers changed that last year by being an absolute, basically, weapon. But I just don't see Tyler Warren having that same level of athleticism. He's cool. He's gadgety. He can run you a quarterback sneak. He can run QB power with his size. He did that at Penn State. He's good catch guy kind of, but he's not fast. He doesn't seem to really. He won just because of physicality, and I don't know if you can do that at the NFL level. I think NFL cover guys can stick with you and get their arm in there where a college defender just kind of chest you up and then let you your arm be free. I think the NFL is a little bit more savvy as far as coverage goes, and I think he's gonna really struggle, especially when you don't have an accurate quarterback on that roster.
Whoa. Watch what you say about Daniel Jones. No, I agree with you. I mean, rest in peace, Jim Irsay. All the best to you and your family. Hope y'all are doing all right with this whole situation. But when the owner dies and the baton gets passed, I feel like we got to kind of talk about that a little bit and in a respectful way about how we don't know what the future ownership of this team is going to look like. We don't know the moves they're going to make. There's a lot of confusing question marks up in the air. And Tyler Warren, he looked great. Maybe he's a great athlete. He looked great in the preseason in his limited little role there. He was peppered with a bunch of targets. Caught him. I think caught all of them. So he looked good as a good player. But when you're talking about drafting a rookie tight end in a dynasty startup draft, that's already a big risk. Despite it working out the past 2 years with Sam Laporta and then again with Brock Bowers. But
I mean, those were established outside of the Raiders. Detroit had a pretty established offense. He just became the underneath monster. And it's like most situations is the tight end kind of gets grafted into an already working offense and then takes it from good to great. It's like that it's the missing piece. It's not the initial piece that you need.
Big Gardner Minshew fan, Ryan Perrio. I mean, Brock Bowers came into a horrible situation and made the best of it. But I think we're saying that that's the exception to the rule, and we don't think Tyler Warren is the exception to the rule level of tight end talent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Moving on to ADP of 66. This is another one of yours, right, Ryan Perrio? Zay Flowers, Dynasty Startup bust.
I think Baltimore. He just waited too long for this star to shine. I think he had, especially his rookie season, I thought he had a chance to absolutely take the lead in this offense and really become the go-to guy with Lamar Jackson. And I think he just had a couple of, just bad luck, bad, plays where he fumbled in the end zone, or he, just little things like that where he just didn't get his feet in. And I think as defenses adjusted to him, you see now that Rashad Bateman's kind of come on. Like they're starting to bring, you got Isaiah Likely starting to come on. Like it's starting to become more
surgery
and more
to start this season, but we're talking Dynasty. Yep, go ahead, Ryan Perrio.
You're just seeing a lot of weapons being added, so it feels like Zay Flowers is starting to become the forgotten man in this offense. Like you got Derrick Henry already, so he's gonna get his share. Lamar's gonna run for his share. When he does throw, you've got Rashad Bateman, who's a much better size down the field mismatch. Like you're starting to relegate yourself to only certain roles when you were drafted as the deep threat / weapon. Now you've kind of just become the slash. You're
gadget guy.
Yeah. And so now your touches are going down, but I think people will still see him because of his speed and wonder, who else do they have? Well, they've done some free agency work. So, I mean, there's a roster there.
Currently being drafted 66 overall is
a little too high.
Flowers.
A little expensive for my blood.
Yeah, he feels like more of a long shot type of guy. Caleb Johnson. I mean, Jared Goff. Just take Jared Goff. End of conversation. Don't take, even if you have 3 quarterbacks on your startup dynasty roster, take a 4th, take Jared Goff, because by the end of the draft, you're going to have like 3 or 4 teams who totally screwed up on quarterback, and you're just going to turn Jared Goff into something awesome, or one of your earlier quarterbacks into something awesome. So hoard quarterbacks in these startup drafts, that needs to be said probably on every startup draft conversation episode. I don't think we even mentioned it last time, but yeah, hoard quarterbacks, trust the process, get 2, probably 3 fairly early on, get 2 really early, and then wait for that guy to fall down in the middle rounds and draft him while everyone else is trying to fill up their tight end slot. Okay. That's the way you dominate these startup drafts, is hoard quarterbacks and not take undersized wide receivers with little upside in Zay Flowers. Ryan Perrio. Moving on to, I can't believe this guy is so high. And if you can get anything for this guy in a trade, I would do that right now, like a 2nd round pick immediately. Tyreek Hill is going ADP of 81. He's going 81st overall off the board in these Super Flex Dynasty startup drafts. Currently injured, right? We don't really know exactly what's going on. Doesn't sound good at all. And he's got an injury-prone quarterback. He's already injured. He's 31 years old. And we saw him when receivers fall off a cliff, they fall off the cliff, and they show you themselves falling off the cliff. And I think that's what we saw. I don't think we're getting a 31-year-old bounce-back season from Tyreek Hill. He had back-to-back elite fantasy winning seasons, 1,700 yards plus in 14.4 yards per catch and 15.1 yards per catch, was catching deep balls. And then this past year, 959 yards, 11.8 yards per catch. So just totally fell off a cliff. I think it's over. And if you want to spend up one of these premium draft picks on an older guy, you can take Alvin Kamara in half PPR and PPR leagues. Jamison Williams is going in this range, which is insane that you would draft Tyreek Hill in the same breath as Jamison Williams. Mike Evans, if you want to go win now, he's healthy right now. If you're betting on an old wide receiver to be relevant for you, help you win a championship in the next 2 years, I'd pick Big Mike over Tyreek, or little tiny Tyreek Hill. David Montgomery, if you want to go in the young side of things. Jerry Jeudy in a long-term contract with the Cleveland Browns, so maybe not the best thing in the world, but either way, he's going to be, Stefanski loves him. He's Stefanski's guy, so he's going to get targeted like he is Stefanski's guy, and then hoard quarterback to take Bryce Young. He could have a bounce back season and be an absolute steal at this late of a pick. Take your 6th quarterback in Bryce Young before you take Tyreek Hill, Ryan Perrio.
Yeah. I think wouldn't his week 18 quote was "Get me out of here"? Isn't that what?
He's been asking for a trade like all offseason. That too.
So,
good point, Ryan Perrio.
Nothing brings fantasy nervousness that an unsteady locker room situation. He to get me out of here. I think he also tried to out his coach a couple of times. Like I think there were some interviews where he was like they said their plan was to run the ball. He's like, they're not going to give me the ball. Like he was complaining about his touches. Like they ran their big guys and coach was like, hey, maybe that's because in our meeting we said, hey, we're going to run the football. It's like, that's why I love Mike McDaniel. He just basically, we talked about that in practice. We're going to run the ball, but maybe that's where you heard it.
Feels like he's getting fired this year if it doesn't go well, which it doesn't feel like it's going to go well this year in Miami with how bad that defense looks. Even if their big 4 on offense stay healthy, which they have an undersized running back, they have a 31-year-old wide receiver who's currently injured. I think Waddle is also on the injury report at the moment.
Yeah.
Tua played.
They've got some real character concerns, and I think, like I said, with the whole I can't think of the coordinator's name now that dipped out.
A lot of distractions in Miami too.
Yeah. Didn't they lose a draft pick because of the courting Tom Brady? Like there's a lot of they just don't seem like they're a very well-run organization. I think I can't remember the name of the coach, the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator basically told them that they basically told him to tank.
Brian Flores. Oh, Brian Flores.
Yeah. Like he basically was given instructions to tank. And so I feel like they just really need to overhaul that front office. And I think they've drafted a lot of concerns. Christian Wilkins, great player, but as you see in Las Vegas, that's kind of blown up. He's kind of, showing that he's like, maybe he was, kind of a issue in Miami that they kind of kept under wraps.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any warm, fuzzy feelings about Tyreek Hill. It's crazy that you would even consider drafting him in the top 100. So don't draft him in your leagues. Moving on to another old guy, an ancient running back, Joe Mixon, currently being drafted at the ADP of 83 overall. So right after Tyreek Hill, currently 29 years old. He is currently on PUP and he is currently in a walking boot. And ironically, I think we're seeing kind of like the Nick Chubb, unfortunately, transition of Joe Mixon from like an elite. He was never really an elite running back. He was an elite opportunity getter. I guess is how you could describe him. He's a volume hog. He's never been super efficient. This is crazy. I looked up his career stats. Joe Mixon's never had a season where he averaged over 5 yards per carry. He needs 250 touches in a season to be somewhat fantasy relevant. And now he's in a walking boot. And I get it. Everyone thinks about these guys as they're like Madden players. And he was an 84 last year. And, he's in a walking boot now. But as soon as he gets out of that walking boot, he's going to be an 84 overall. And his speed's going to be the same. His endurance is going to be the same. And his durability is going to be the same. And we're talking about real life human athletes here. If you're not able to walk without a walking boot and you are not able to train lower body virtually at all in any functional, meaningful football way, like he can't sprint, he can't run, he's probably on a bike doing cardio, that's not going to get you into football shape. And we're talking about this is a long-term, going back to, I think, pre-draft. We were having concerns about Joe Mixon showing up in videos with this weird, mysterious, I think they have it classified as like a foot injury, which is like even scarier for like a big running back in a boot in the foot. He's 29 years old. He's, I think, about to fall off the cliff. He's never really been efficient in the first place. Maybe one of these, maybe Dare Agumbawale, or maybe Nick Chubb kind of bounces back, or maybe Woody Marks is the savior we had hoped that he'd be, despite him looking sort of bad in preseason. And you're giving up again on Jameson Williams, Bryce Young, Mike Evans, David Montgomery, Jerry Jeudy. It's just funny to think about you drafting, looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm clicking Joe Mixon over David Montgomery. It just seems insane to me.
Yeah, it's becoming a concern. It's weird that it's been this long, and they've just tried to say, well, he'll be ready for camp. He'll be ready for preseason. He'll be ready for week 1.
Sounds like Jonathan Brooks to me.
Yeah,
except he's 29 years old. Go ahead.
I think Woody Marks really struggled. He looked like a deer in the headlights getting the ball. Like he really looked like in his mind he was trying to remember, just kind of like, okay, here's where the play's supposed to go. And I don't think he wasn't instinctive. It was more he was trying to process. Jawar Jordan's also a candidate. Damian Pierce would love to see him kind of get back to his old form of what he was, but he just may not be that one cut runner that they want in those offenses. He was kind of more of a power guy. He kind of, came out in just a power offensive line scheme where you let him run. You tell him run here, he runs there. He doesn't like to. I don't think he's very much like, hey, let me cut here, let me cut there. I think that sometimes that can be too much because you see a glimpse and immediately think that should cut there, and then you realize, oh, I shouldn't have cut there. I think some players just are like, just tell me which direction and I'll hit it. And
I'm not giving up on Woody Marks yet based on one.
I'm not either.
Just like I'm not giving up on Trey Harris yet, but I'm going to start overreacting pretty soon on both of them if they don't improve very, very quickly. But what are we? We're like a month away from the season, right? We're like 4.5 weeks.
You're rookies. You should expect these things to happen. I want them to happen now versus week 10 when a playoff spot's on the line. I don't need them having that oops moment then. I'd rather them have it as soon as they possibly can so they can digest it, learn, and move forward.
Yep, have them grow. But on the other side of that, Joe Mixon, we're looking at a guy who hasn't run full speed and maybe the last time he was in a uniform, when we saw him last year at the end of the season.
The Cowboys, the Cowboy game?
I guess, yeah. He's not run full speed. He's 29 years old. That's kind of when we see those running backs really, really fall off a cliff historically, especially if they're having injury concerns. He's a cut candidate too. When we're talking dynasty, he could get cut. He could get cut this year. He'd be like an $8 million dead cap. They'd save a couple million if they cut him this year. If he's not healthy, if he's not healthy, I imagine they'd probably look into just parting ways with Joe Mixon, ripping the Band-Aid off so they don't have to worry about the cap hit next season.
Like I said, it's alarming that they've gotten Nick Chubb and, you drafted a guy, okay, you think maybe he'll, but to have Nick Chubb there tells me that it's like, this is maybe even longer than
I think they were downplaying it early. Yeah. Either way, there's no way he gets in shape for 250 touches this year. And that's what you need out of Joe Mixon, because he's not going to be an H-N where he's going to be 7 yards per carry out of nowhere. It's just that's not his game. He's a pass blocker. He's a great pass blocker, which is probably why he gets so much opportunity, is that he is such a good pass blocker, but he's not going to be the volume guy that you've had over the past, half a decade with Joe Mixon. Moving on to Matthew Golden, my next bust candidate in these startup drafts. ADP currently of 84. His profile, and I feel like we talk a lot about it pre-draft, but his profile is the exact opposite of what you're looking for in your first round wide receiver who will break out. Well under 2 yards per route run in his career. And you are basing if you're drafting Matthew Golden 84 overall in these startup drafts or in redraft, you're basing your whole take on this guy based off like a 3-game sample size at the end of his college career. And you're throwing everything else entirely out the door. It's a very small sample size, and I don't think it's indicative of the rest of his whole career, where we just saw him just disappear from games in Texas. And maybe he had like one of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time there in Quinn Ewers, because everyone was super excited about him. But anyways, he is a 40-yard dash hype machine, and there hasn't really been a fantasy relevant wide receiver in Green Bay since Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers were over there having a connection together. He's going again near Jameson Williams, Bryce Young, Mike Evans, David Montgomery, Jerry Jeudy, Just take Jerry Jeudy. He's going to get 200 targets this year. If he sucks, he's going to get 200 targets this year. And I think he's going to be good. I think he looked good in Cleveland last year. I think it's going to be Joe Flacco for 17 games, so that's good for Jerry Jeudy. And Matthew Golden is in a super crowded wide receiver room, a lot of confusion, a lot of up in the air. I get it. You got a good quarterback, maybe a good head coach, but I don't care about the first round draft capital. But with Matthew Golden, I just don't believe in him film wise and analytics wise. He's got too many red flags on his profile to take him over a guy like David Montgomery, Mike Evans, Jerry Jeudy. Guys will actually be good this year. Ryan Perrio. I know you like Matthew Golden.
I'll disagree because I believe that even in a crowd, if the receiver room is that crowded, then why did they draft him in the first round?
I hear you.
They want him to be the alpha, and that's what he needs to establish. I believe that he will get the lion's share of the targets this year. I think you can't count. Jaden Reed's already hurt, which would be one of my, fit people to maybe not look at buying. Like Jaden Reed can't stay healthy and doesn't seem to be consistent. Christian may not play this year. So that's another, that's another receiver down. Then you're Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Dobbs, who are decent, but can't stay healthy. Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks is just kind of who he is. He's a big body that can kind of get open sometimes, but other times he's just
forgets how to catch footballs.
Yeah. So I think Matthew Golden was drafted to be the alpha of this room.
That's definitely what he was drafted to do. Yeah, 100%. That's what he was drafted to do.
Yeah, I believe he can do it. I see the stuff on Diggs-ish like potential of what he can be. I believe he will get every opportunity. So in this offense, I would definitely do it just because over Jerry Jeudy, just because you don't know what passing game or what's going to happen in Cleveland. Especially if Joe Flacco doesn't win the starting job, then it's going to be open season.
If it's Pickett, I mean, they're still talking about Pickett like he's the number 2 on this team. And maybe it's just to pump him up just so they can trade him away. Maybe that's what it is.
I think Pickett is just kind of I think it's going to be Gabriel or Shador is what I think it's going to be. And I think Pickett is going to be the guy on the clipboard doing, when they come.
So you think they're going to cut or trade Gabriel or Shador?
I believe they will probably trade Gabriel at this point. I think Shador having the game he did, it will absolutely be an NFL riot if the Browns decide to trade off of him, because that's going to be a whole can of worms of, well, what's wrong with him? He had a lights out game. Like there's going to be a whole, I think it's going to be Shador is probably going to be, if Joe Flacco gets a job, Shador will be number 3. And they'll either, look to trade Dylan Gabriel or just practice squad stash him. And if it's Shador that's starting, then Pickett will be the guy that's on the sideline with him, teaching him what to do.
I don't know what's going to happen in Cleveland, but I do like Joe Flacco for Jerry Jeudy. I do like that. If I had to guess, I think they're just going to cut Kenny Pickett because they're going to try and trade him, and nobody's going to be interested in him. And I mean, they haven't even had the opportunity to showcase Dylan Gabriel in preseason. They don't know, like, outside of just like the camp videos, like how you're going to get a rookie to get traded away. I seriously think it's entirely possible that they trade away Shedeur Sanders. I think that's kind of like the dark horse thing that's going to happen. And Deshaun Watson today posted a video of him dropping back, throwing passes, running at full speed. He wasn't changing directions yet, but that's not as big of a deal when we're talking about an Achilles injury. He's going to be back maybe week 6, maybe week 8 of this season, which is scary to think about, because then you got, if you keep all 4, not counting Tyler Huntley, who they just signed for no reason. If you keep all 4, then you got Deshaun coming back, and Deshaun's back and he's healthy. You're going to have to put him on the roster at least as a backup because you're paying him. The cap hit like $80 million this year.
I guess I'm looking at the body types and I'm thinking Flacco is going to be the odd man out. Like, I just don't see.
I totally disagree with that. All the reports, even Mary Kay is like Flacco's the guy. He's the number one. I genuinely believe their plan is to start Flacco for 17 games this season. That's what I think. And
that's my hope. That's my hope. That's my hope.
I'm pretty locked in. I'm pretty locked into the Cleveland Browns pulse for their beat writers. I've been following them extremely closely for like the past 5 years. So Mary Kay, she's a shill for the organization, meaning she'll say whatever they tell her to. But at the same time, because she's such a good girl, she gets the scoops. So she knows that Flacco's number one, and she's putting out at least that Pickett is number two, despite him not really practicing with the team at all over the course of preseason because he's been injured. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on. Enough talk about the Cleveland Browns. You disagree. You like Matthew Golden. I don't. I think he's a big red flag, walking red flag. And we've got two guys left. My last guy on my bust list for the Super Flex Dynasty Startup Drafts, DeAndre Swift is currently going 99 overall in these startup drafts. In a real life dynasty draft, I mean, let's be honest, you're probably not going to be able to trade him away. But if you can get a 3rd round pick for him, go ahead and do that and be happy about it. Team seems to already not like him. I guess he might be the leader in the clubhouse, but Ben Johnson didn't like him in Detroit, and there's some rumors that maybe that was somebody else's decision. Whatever. He didn't like him. He didn't play well. He can't even stay healthy. And I get it, he's only 26 years old, but what's the upside? Where are we going with DeAndre Swift's 3rd team? I think that's correct. And DJ Moore's running snaps at running back in practice. Roschon is already locked in for the goal line role, which I think Roschon's probably not getting talked about because if he's just like Jamal Williams for the Chicago Bears team, that's pretty interesting to me. If Roschon's just going to go for 300 yards and 16 touchdowns this year, that would be pretty nice. If you have him on your dynasty roster or your best ball fantasy football teams.
Sounds like someone does right now.
Sounds like someone has a lot of stake in Roschon Johnson. Roschon Johnson. You are, by the way, drafting DeAndre Swift, and you are passing up Luther Burden, Cortland Sutton, James Conner, Jackson Dart, Brian Thomas, and Tua Tagovailoa.
I would probably take most of those outside of probably Luther Burden.
Luther Burden, that's fair.
Just a Bear. Again, Bears, Jets, Colts. There's some offenses out there that are really just gonna. If you're having to play those teams, you're really like kind of gritting your teeth watching those games, those 9-3 ball games. That it seemed to me.
James Conner a little bit older, but obviously better situation. Worst case scenario, Trey Benson eats away at a few of his carries, but for James Conner, who's a guy who's been chronically injured every single year of his career, maybe not the worst thing in the world for him to get a little bit so he can get a 17-game season in for you at a pretty good rate. I like Luther Burden over DeAndre Swift. Obviously, Cortland Sutton's like a no-brainer. Just got extended, married to Bo Nix, who I think we all really, really like, married to Sean Payton, who I think we all kind of have a love-hate relationship with in the fantasy football community. Brian Robinson, I think he's kind of locked into Washington. I get it. It's not I think he's on a contract season right now, looking into one. Mm-hmm. Jackson Dart is like a little, pardon the pun, but a little bit of a high upside dart throw.
Yeah, that's a reach right there.
At 99, but if you need a quarterback and you believe in Jackson Dart, which we did pre-draft. We loved Jackson Dart pre-draft. I think all three of us did.
He had a great game. Game Tua. 1.
And then Tua. I think he's. Yeah. I would probably take Tua ahead of all of these guys outside of Cortland Sutton, just because his upside is he just plays 10 more years in the NFL and is elite, and you're not going to have injury concerns with him anymore. Obviously, that's not going to be the case, but that's the upside. And if you do have a good start to the season out of Tua and the Dolphins, and then you just trade him, which is what I would do, that's what we're talking about in these dynasty startup drafts. So buy low on Tua, sell high on DeAndre Swift if you can.
Also, Kyle Monangai is actually silently sniping away potential carries from DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. He looked very impressive in his game.
I knew we weren't going to get out of this podcast with you bringing up Kyle Monangai, Ryan Perrio. You son of a bitch.
Already kick returner. Already on the kick return. So it's like
you look nice. I'll say that.
I guess for a guy that is as big as he is and didn't really post combine numbers for to be put on the kick return and already, doing the special teams things, it's like you're definitely doing all the right things as a young, low drafted running back to get extra touches. You're doing the right things. You're picking up blocks. You're running the right routes. Like you're making gains when you should have been losing yards on some of those plays. Like I was real impressed with him. I think he could factor into this backfield.
A little bit of juice. He had a little bit of juice, Ryan Perrio. Last guy on our list. This is your guy, and he's a Michigan State Spartan, so I'm gonna pretend to disagree with you here. Jaden Reed, ADP of 108 currently. Ryan Perrio.
The small receiver and
team
already, and foot injury, and so when your ability relies on your ability to make breaks and cuts and everything, and you've got a foot injury, that's not going to go away, especially when you're going into the start of the season. That's only going to get aggravated, and then you're going to have to be like I feel like this is going to be a year and possibly a career of Jaden Reed where he's going to give you little tempting, games of where he goes off for like 5 receptions and 98 yards and 2 touches, but then he's going to have long bouts on the injury. It's such a red flag to have your third or fourth year in the league, and you're having a foot injury in camp. It doesn't bode well because your feet are your most valuable asset. And I feel like already hindering those takes away a little bit of the burst and the ability that you had and makes it to where you're less. And at some point it just gets to a point where you're not separating. And then that's it.
Yeah. Jaden Reed at the combine measured out at 5'11", 187 pounds. And I think with Devontae Smith, we had a little bit of hope in the NFL as analysts that maybe there would be this big resurgence of these like ultra undersized wide receivers who are actually efficient and productive fantasy assets in the dynasty world and in like real life football. And over the past couple of years, I think we've just been punched in the face with the fact that if you're going to have a legit dynasty asset at the running back position, they've got to be at least 195 pounds. And at the wide receiver position, they got to be about 205, in my opinion. It's a tough road. I mean, we do this every time. Okay. So, but I think it's important. I think this is an important thing, right? So 5'11", 187 pounds. I am not near as big as an NFL safety or an NFL. Well, I could be a short safety. I would be very short at the safety position, but weight wise, I'd be all right. I am not a linebacker by any means, but let's say, I mean, Tank, your sweet Prince Tank Dell, we were really excited about him. He can't stay healthy. Look, this is me. All right. I'm 215 pounds. I'm 5'7" 3/4. Okay.
Note the 3/4.
I'm not a big guy for NFL standards. And we're talking about guys right now that are 40 pounds less than me playing in a men's league. Like,
and running how much faster?
How's that going to work in the long run?
Running 20 plus miles an hour, colliding and entangling in you, with you, like as they take you down. Like so many freak accidents happen with those takedowns when you're trying to get away and then somebody else, slides in or a block comes in from behind you, takes your back leg out. Like there's so much carnage.
There's so many things that can go wrong. And let's be honest, Ryan Perry, talking about Tank Dell, both the times when he had those season-ending injuries,
friendly fire.
It feels like we've seen those hits from other receivers and they just get up or they sprain their ankle. And when it happens to a guy who's 175 pounds flying 220 miles an hour down the field, his knee dislocates. It's horrible. fractured fibula or whatever, fractured ankle. Basically, it just becomes so much more catastrophic.
Yeah,
from
when you're
you have a
shorter, your
170-pound guy.
knees, you start to get more into the strike zone of what a traditional player would be. A 6'2" player's strike zone is the chest.
Yeah.
For a 5'11" guy, that's now the bottom of the face mask. NFL defenders, are trying their best to hit you, not hurt you, but not injure you. So they're trying to hurt you. They're trying to make you rethink your decision about going into this area with them again. But they're not trying
over
to.
The middle. Ray Lewis, classic.
Yeah, but they're not trying to end your career. Everybody here has a career. You're all gladiators in the same arena. Your job is to collide with each other, but it's not to absolutely maim, which they could. They could absolutely on every play.
We saw those highlights from the big hits compilations from the 90s. Man, what a better time to be alive.
But I mean, even then in the 90s, that's just, they didn't know better. They didn't, they weren't given the results of those hits. They just were told, here's your paycheck. Your family now you and your extended family now can live in the best part of town in a 15-room mansion. They don't tell you the long-term ramifications of, hey, you may not be able to hold your child again because you've thrown your shoulder into so many knees. You're just not going to be able to hold, a baby or, lift. Like Mike Ditka, his knee was so bad. Like when he had to putt, like he had to lay down on the ground, like he couldn't kneel because his knee was just locked. And so you'd have to kind of like slide, squat. You couldn't squat down. He had to just kind of get down. And it's just you see them on the field, you don't see them after, and that's really the part when you're an undersized athlete, they can really, just really take away what made you special, even though you were undersized. Like my best example is not a super athletic guy, was Matt Schaub, the quarterback of the Texans. He wasn't super fast, but he was just fast enough pre-foot injury to elude defenders long enough to throw the ball. Once his foot got injured on a quarterback sneak, and he couldn't plant like he used to, he didn't have that speed, and now he was a sitting duck. It's just that little hair of a split second sometimes it separates you from being NFL level to just not being able to play anymore. And that's the heartbreaking part of it, but that's the reality.
Yeah. I'm always going to bet on, it just makes sense. I mean, you see these guys in real life and you're like, oh, that 185-pound goofball who's dancing in between his weightlifting sets, like that's supposed to be an NFL corner that everyone's afraid of. Like that's supposed to be a wide receiver that is going to break tackles in the men's league. And then you see Derrick Henry, or you see, big Zach Bond, big sack Zach, or, anybody, any linebacker in any team. It's just, you see Aiden Hutchinson, you see Myles Garrett out in public, and you're like, that guy's on the same football field as Travis Hunter. Like that's not going to go well. That shouldn't be allowed. So yeah, anyways, it's kind of the end of an era for me. We grow, we reflect on these things. That's why we have these kind of extended conversations on this podcast. And I think we have to adapt. And I think we have to really be honest about, like, this is a men's league and you got to be 205 pounds if you're going to play it. Ryan Perrio.
Like just appreciate the players while you have them. I mean, it's with free agency and stuff like now, it's such a, it's so different than when I was a kid, when they didn't have free agency, and you realize how beneficial that is for the league after you have it. But when I was a kid, you had the same players from the moment they drafted to they retired. So you would spend like 10 years with your quarterback, your running back, your offensive, defensive lineman. And to see it kind of blossom into even, everybody making more money and being able to get more players into that what they want, which is to win a championship, to where they can position themselves to have a career that just said, wasn't, oh, I just basically played for a 3-17 team for 20 years. We never, you actually have a chance to motivate and feel like you have accomplished something other than
well,
an NFL
you may have lived your whole career on a 3-7 Cleveland Browns football team, but maybe Nick Chubb, maybe you helped me win a fantasy football championship, and I hope that's enough for you.
Carry me on your shoulders.
You took me across the goal line metaphorically in my fantasy football, but for real, like that's the fun part and the kind of sad part about Dynasty fantasy football is you do kind of, if you have like a good league that lasts, a decade or 2 or 3, or both my leagues definitely last several generations. I'll pass my team on to my child, and they'll pass that team on to their child. So it'll be like a multi-generational dynasty league here that we're talking about. But at the end of the day, you get these guys. You got like Keenan Allen. Like, oh man, remember all the good years with Keenan Allen? Remember all the good years with Nick Chubb? Remember all the good years? Maybe we were going to get a couple more years. DeAndre Hopkins.
Remember that CJ2K 2,000 yards?
Oh my gosh! You build an emotional relationship with some of these players, and it gets kind of like weird when you're like, man, I've had this guy on my roster for 5 years, and now I'm trading him for a 2nd-round rookie draft pick. Like, that's the business, and that's what's fun about Dynasty Fantasy Football. All right, Ryan Perrio, we're talking too long. Let's get out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe next time. What are we going to talk about? I think we're going to have a Dynasty episode or a gambling episode coming up for our preseason gambling picks. Dynasty wise, I think we've kind of hit an end to the Dynasty Fantasy Football content for the year, Ryan Perrio.
I guess maybe a season primer almost. Like maybe we can do like a season. Like, what do we think the season's gonna be?
Hot takes.
We can do a script. We can do a script reveal.
Okay.
Of the NFL.
So be on the lookout for more. If you like this Superflex, the Superflex Dynasty content is doing way better than like everything else on this channel at the moment. I don't know why, but that is the case. So if people want to see it, we'll keep on producing it, but I'm out of ideas at the moment, Ryan Perrio. So be on the lookout for that. If not, we'll have redraft stuff. We'll definitely have like a review of my home league to kind of give you an idea of like maybe a realistic home league when there's not like professional mock drafters drafting on a podcast. There's like actual like casual football fans who've been fantasy football managers for like, 15 years, but they're not like super serious about it. Just to get you to know, give you an idea of what to expect, because it's not like the mock drafts you're playing against on the bot. So maybe we'll be on the lookout for that and more content to come. So thank you guys for coming and watching. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. Good night.